I was looking through my jewelry box on a Wednesday afternoon, searching for my mother's pearl earrings to wear to church, when I realized they were gone. And at first, I told myself I must have misplaced them, must have put them somewhere safe and forgotten, because at 72 years old, your memory plays tricks sometimes, and I didn't want to admit what I was starting to suspect. But then I noticed my grandmother's gold bracelet was also missing, and the silver locket Thomas had given me for our 10th anniversary, and the small diamond ring I'd inherited from my aunt. All gone, all vanished from the box where they'd been kept for years. I stood there with my hands shaking, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid, that there had to be an explanation. But deep down, I already knew the truth. My caregiver, Linda, the woman I'd invited into my home 3 months ago, the woman I'd trusted to help me with daily tasks and keep me company, had been systematically stealing from me. And when I finally checked the envelope where I kept emergency cash in my bedroom drawer and found only $20 of the $300 that should have been there, I realized this wasn't just about a few missing items. This was about someone who'd looked at a vulnerable elderly woman and seen an opportunity to exploit. My name is Ann Williams, and I'm 72 years old. I live in a small brick house on Magnolia Street in Charleston, South Carolina, the house where my late husband Thomas and I raised our 2 children and built our life together over 45 years of marriage. Thomas died 3 years ago from a sudden stroke. After his death, I'd managed well enough on my own for a while, but about 6 months ago, I'd started having trouble with arthritis in my knees and hands. Simple tasks, cooking, cleaning, even getting dressed some mornings had become difficult and painful. My son Marcus, who lives in Atlanta, had been worried about me. "Mama, you need help. What if you fall? What if something happens and no one's there?" I'd resisted at first. I valued my independence. I didn't want to be someone who needed care. But Marcus had been persistent, and eventually I'd agreed to hire someone to come in a few times a week to help with household tasks, run errands, and provide companionship. That's how Linda Morrison came into my life. She'd been recommended by an agency called Comfort Care Home Services. She was 53 years old, had excellent references, had worked as a caregiver for 15 years. When I'd interviewed her, she'd seemed perfect, warm, competent, professional. "Mrs. Williams, I know how hard it is to let someone into your home," she'd said during our first meeting, "but I promise you, I'll treat your home with respect. I'll treat you with respect. My job is to make your life easier, not to take over. You're still in charge. I'm just here to help." I'd hired her on the spot. For the first month, everything had seemed wonderful. Linda came 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. She helped me with laundry, light housework, meal preparation. She drove me to doctor's appointments and the grocery store. She was friendly and attentive. I'd felt so fortunate to have found such good help. But looking back now, I could see the signs I'd missed, the little things that hadn't quite added up. The first week, Linda had asked where I kept important documents, insurance papers, bank statements, my Social Security card. "Just in case of emergency," she'd said, "I should know where these things are if something happens to you." It had seemed reasonable at the time, so I'd shown her my file cabinet in the home office where Thomas used to pay bills. The second week, she'd asked about my jewelry. "You have such beautiful pieces, Mrs. Williams. Do you keep them in a safe? You should really have them insured." I told her I kept most of my jewelry in my bedroom, in the jewelry box on my dresser. Again, it had seemed like she was just being helpful, concerned about my security. The third week, she'd been very interested in my family photos, asking about my children and grandchildren, where they lived, how often they visited. I told her Marcus was in Atlanta and came to visit once a month, and my daughter Jennifer lived in Charleston but worked long hours and visited every other week or so. At the time, I thought she was just making conversation, getting to know me. Now I realized she'd been gathering information, learning what valuables I had and how much privacy she'd have to steal them. If you've ever had someone you trusted systematically exploit your vulnerability and violate your home, you know the particular horror I felt standing there with my jewelry box, understanding that I'd been robbed by someone I'd welcomed into my life. I needed to be sure before I accused her of anything, so I started checking other places where I kept valuables. The small wooden box where I kept commemorative coins Thomas had collected, several were missing. The china cabinet where I kept my mother's good silver, 2 serving spoons were gone. The bookshelf where I kept a small antique clock that had belonged to Thomas's grandfather, gone. Item after item, slowly disappearing over 3 months while I'd trusted Linda completely. I estimated that at least $2,000 worth of jewelry, silver, and collectibles were missing, plus the $280 in cash. I felt sick, not just about the stolen items, but about my own naivete. I'd let this woman into my home. I trusted her with access to everything I owned, and she'd been robbing me the entire time. I called Marcus immediately. "Mama, are you absolutely sure? Maybe you moved things and forgot." "Marcus, I'm not confused. I know exactly what's missing and where it should be. Linda has been stealing from me." "Have you confronted her?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first." "Don't confront her alone. Wait until I can get there. I'm driving down this weekend." "In the meantime, don't let her know you suspect anything." "Her next shift is Friday. What do I do?" "Act normal. Don't give her any indication you know. We need to catch her, Mama. We need evidence." After hanging up with Marcus, I sat thinking about what to do. I couldn't just let Linda come back into my house knowing she was a thief, but I also couldn't confront her without proof. She'd just deny everything. I needed evidence. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to an electronics store and bought a small security camera, the kind that looks like a regular alarm clock. The young man at the store helped me set it up to record to a cloud account that I could access on my phone. I placed it on my bedroom dresser on Thursday evening, positioned so it would capture anyone entering my room or going through my belongings. On Friday morning, Linda arrived at 9 o'clock, as usual. "Good morning, Mrs. Williams. How are you feeling today?" She was smiling, cheerful, acting like the perfect caregiver, and the whole time she was planning to rob me. "I'm fine, Linda. A bit tired. I think I'll rest in the living room while you do the laundry." "Of course. You rest. I'll take care of everything." I sat in the living room with my phone in my lap, the security camera app open. I could see my bedroom on the screen, waiting to see what Linda would do. For the first hour, she genuinely worked, sorting laundry, starting the washing machine, tidying the kitchen. But around 10:30, she went upstairs. I watched on my phone screen as she entered my bedroom. She went straight to my jewelry box. I watched her open it, sort through the remaining pieces, and slip a small gold ring, one of the last valuable pieces I had left, into her pocket. Then she went to my dresser drawer where I kept some cash for emergencies. I'd replaced the stolen money with marked bills, $20 bills I'd written my initials on in tiny letters on the corner. I watched her take 2 20s and slip them into her pocket. She looked around the room, checking to see if there was anything else worth taking, then left. The whole thing took less than 3 minutes. I had her on video. Clear, undeniable evidence of Linda stealing from me. I felt vindicated, but also furious. This woman had been coming into my home for 3 months, pretending to care about me while systematically robbing me. When Linda came back downstairs, I was sitting in my chair trying to keep my expression neutral. "Mrs. Williams, I'm going to run to the store to pick up those groceries you needed. I'll be back in about an hour." "That's fine, Linda." As soon as she left, I called the police. "I need to report a theft. My caregiver has been stealing from me, and I have video evidence." The dispatcher took my information and said an officer would be there within the hour. Officer James Bradford arrived 45 minutes later. I showed him the video on my phone, Linda clearly taking the ring and the cash. "Mrs. Williams, this is clear evidence of theft. Do you know how long this has been going on?" 3 months. She's taken jewelry, silver, collectibles, cash, probably over $2,000 worth of items total. "And she's coming back here today?" "Yes, she should be back any minute." "Okay, I'm going to wait here. When she returns, I'll question her and likely place her under arrest." Officer Bradford had just settled into a chair when we heard Linda's car pull into the driveway. She came in carrying grocery bags, still playing the role of helpful caregiver. "Mrs. Williams, I got everything on your list." She stopped when she saw the police officer. "Is everything all right?" "Miss Morrison," Officer Bradford stood up. "I'm Officer Bradford with the Charleston Police. Mrs. Williams has reported that items have been stolen from her home. I need to ask you some questions." Linda's face went pale. "Stolen? I don't know anything about that." "Mrs. Williams has video evidence of you taking items from her bedroom this morning." "That's ridiculous. I would never. Mrs. Williams, you know me. I've been taking care of you." "I would never steal from you." "I have you on camera, Linda," I said quietly, "taking my gold ring and $40 from my dresser drawer this morning." That's not... You're confused, Mrs. Williams. You probably forgot that you gave me those things." "I didn't give you anything. You stole them." Officer Bradford stepped forward. "Miss Morrison, I need you to empty your pockets." "This is harassment. I don't have to." "You can empty your pockets voluntarily, or I can arrest you right now and we'll do it at the station. Your choice." Linda's hands were shaking as she reached into her pockets. She pulled out my gold ring and 2 $20 bills. Officer Bradford examined the bills and saw my initials on the corners. "These bills are marked. Mrs. Williams, are these yours?" "Yes, I marked them specifically to see if Linda would take them." "Miss Morrison, you're under arrest for theft." Officer Bradford handcuffed Linda while reading her rights. Linda started crying. "Please, Mrs. Williams, please, I made a mistake. I have bills to pay. I have debts. I'm sorry. Please don't do this." "You've been stealing from me for 3 months, Linda. Every time you came into my home, you took something. You betrayed my trust." "I'll give it all back. I'll pay you back, please." "Where are my mother's pearl earrings, my grandmother's bracelet, my husband's watch? Where are all the things you've stolen?" Linda looked at the floor. "I sold them. I needed the money." The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother's earrings, which she'd given me on my wedding day. My grandmother's bracelet, which had been in our family for 3 generations. Thomas's watch, which his father had given him when he graduated from high school. All sold. Gone forever. Traded for cash by a woman I trusted. Officer Bradford took Linda away. Before he left, he told me a detective would contact me to take a full statement and gather all the evidence. I sat in my living room after they left, feeling violated and angry and ashamed. Ashamed that I'd been so trusting, so naive. Ashamed that I'd let someone do this to me. But I also felt something else, determined. Linda wasn't going to get away with this, and she wasn't going to do this to anyone else. Over the next few days, I learned more about Linda Morrison that made me even angrier. The detective assigned to my case, Detective Sarah Chen, did a background check and discovered that Linda had been fired from 2 previous caregiver positions for suspected theft, though charges had never been filed. The families didn't want to go through the hassle of prosecuting, Detective Chen explained. They just fired her and moved on. But that meant she was free to get hired by another agency and do the same thing to someone else. So I'm not her first victim? No. Based on what we're finding, you're probably at least her third. The agency that hired her, Comfort Care, apparently didn't do thorough background checks. They're facing their own legal issues now. Detective Chen also told me that Linda had significant credit card debt and a gambling problem. She'd been stealing from elderly clients to fund her casino habit. Mrs. Williams, I want you to understand something. What Linda did to you wasn't opportunistic. It was predatory. She specifically sought out jobs with elderly people living alone because she knew they'd be vulnerable, trusting, and unlikely to notice things going missing right away. The premeditation of it made it even worse. I also started the process of trying to recover my stolen items. Detective Chen worked with local pawn shops to see if any of my jewelry or silver had been sold there. We found my grandmother's bracelet at a pawn shop downtown. Linda had sold it for $150, a fraction of its actual and sentimental value. I had to pay $300 to buy it back. We found 2 of my mother's silver serving spoons at an antique dealer. Again, I had to pay to get my own property back. But my mother's pearl earrings, Thomas's watch, several other pieces, they were gone. Sold to private buyers we couldn't track down, or sold online and shipped to unknown locations. The financial loss was significant, but the emotional loss was incalculable. Family heirlooms that had been passed down through generations, gone forever because I'd trusted the wrong person. Linda's trial came 4 months after her arrest. The prosecutor, a determined woman named Rachel Martinez, charged Linda with multiple counts of theft and exploitation of an elderly person. Mrs. Williams, I want you to know that we take these cases very seriously. Elder abuse, and that's what this is a serious crime. We're going to make sure Linda faces appropriate consequences. At the trial, I had to testify about what Linda had stolen, how I discovered it, the video evidence. It was humiliating to sit in a courtroom and admit how easily I'd been fooled. But Rachel was prepared. She also brought in testimony from Linda's 2 previous victims, both elderly women who'd been too ashamed to press charges at the time, but were willing to testify now. One woman, Dorothy, was 76. She told the court that Linda had stolen over $5,000 worth of jewelry from her, including her deceased husband's wedding ring. The other woman, Margaret, was 81. She'd had dementia, and Linda had stolen not just valuables, but also blank checks, which she'd forged and cashed, stealing nearly $10,000 from Margaret's bank account. I thought she was helping me, Margaret testified in a shaky voice. I trusted her, and she stole from me when I was most vulnerable. The pattern was clear. Linda Morrison was a serial predator who targeted elderly people, gained their trust, and then systematically robbed them. The jury found her guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison and ordered full restitution to all 3 victims. Miss Morrison, the judge said, his voice hard, you preyed on vulnerable people who trusted you. You violated that trust in the worst possible way. You stole not just valuables, but irreplaceable family heirlooms, items with deep sentimental value. And you did it repeatedly to multiple victims. This court has no sympathy for you. Linda cried during the sentencing, but I felt no pity. She'd made calculated choices to exploit vulnerable people. She deserved every year of that sentence. After the trial, I also pursued action against Comfort Care Home Services, the agency that had hired Linda without proper background checks. My lawyer, Dorothy Chin, no relation to Detective Sarah Chin, filed a lawsuit against the agency for negligence. Mrs. Williams, Comfort Care failed in their duty to properly vet the people they sent into clients' homes. Linda had been fired twice for suspected theft, but Comfort Care never checked her employment history beyond calling her listed references, which were friends who lied for her. The lawsuit was settled out of court. Comfort Care agreed to pay me $15,000 in damages and agreed to completely overhaul their hiring and background check procedures. They also agreed to my one additional demand. They had to contact every client Linda had worked with and warn them to check for missing items, and they had to offer to pay for security audits for those clients. I wanted to make sure that if Linda had other victims, they'd have a chance to discover it and get justice. My case also got media attention. A local news station did a story about elder abuse by caregivers, featuring my experience and interviews with Dorothy and Margaret. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of elderly people called the station to report similar experiences with caregivers who'd stolen from them. The story sparked a broader investigation into elder abuse in the Charleston area. I also started speaking at senior centers and community groups about protecting yourself from caregiver theft. Here's what I learned the hard way, I'd tell audiences. First, always use agencies that do thorough background checks. Ask to see proof of their screening process. Second, never give your caregiver access to valuables or important documents. Keep those things locked away. Third, install security cameras. It feels like you're being paranoid, but you're being smart. And fourth, trust your instincts. If something feels off, if things start going missing, don't ignore it. Don't tell yourself you're being paranoid or that your memory is failing. Investigate. Many people thanked me for speaking up. Several told me they'd had similar experiences but had been too ashamed to report them. I thought it was my fault for being too trusting, one woman told me. But you're right, it's not our fault. We're not supposed to have to suspect everyone who offers to help us. One of the most meaningful conversations I had was with Margaret, the 81-year-old woman with dementia who Linda had also victimized. Margaret's daughter contacted me and asked if we could meet. When I visited Margaret at the memory care facility where she now lived, she held my hand and said, "Thank you for being brave enough to report her. If you hadn't, she'd still be out there hurting people." I almost didn't report her, I admitted. I felt so stupid for being tricked. I was ashamed. "We shouldn't have to be ashamed for trusting people," Margaret said. "They should be ashamed for betraying that trust." She was right. About a year after Linda's sentencing, I received a letter from her in prison. My first instinct was to throw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mrs. Williams, I know you have no reason to read this or to believe anything I say, but I want you to know that I understand now what I did. I've been in therapy here, working on my gambling addiction and the patterns of behavior that led me to hurt people. I see now that I didn't just steal objects from you. I stole your sense of security, your ability to trust, your peace of mind. I violated your home and your dignity. And I did it to multiple people, repeatedly, without thinking about the harm I was causing. I was so focused on my own needs, my own problems, that I stopped seeing my victims as human beings. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm trying to become someone who would never do it again. Linda Morrison." I read the letter twice. Part of me wanted to believe she was genuinely remorseful. But another part of me remembered how easily she lied to me for 3 months, how convincingly she played the role of caring helper while robbing me blind. Words were easy, change was hard. And I would never know if Linda truly changed or if this was just another manipulation. I didn't respond to the letter. I put it in a file with all the other documents from the case and tried to move forward. Moving forward meant rebuilding my sense of security in my own home. For months after Linda's arrest, I'd felt violated in my own house. I'd installed an alarm system and additional cameras. I'd changed my locks. I'd moved my valuables to a safe deposit box at the bank. But I also had to do the harder work of learning to trust again, not blindly, but carefully. I eventually hired another caregiver, this time through a different agency with much stricter screening procedures. Her name was Patricia, and she was 65, a retired nurse who did part-time caregiving. I was cautious with Patricia at first. I kept my cameras running. I monitored everything. I didn't give her access to anything I didn't absolutely need her to have. But over time, Patricia proved trustworthy. She never went into rooms she didn't need to be in. She never asked intrusive questions about my valuables. She treated my home with genuine respect. "Mrs. Williams," she said to me one day about 6 months after she'd started working for me, "I know you're careful with me. I know you have cameras running and you check everything. And I want you to know I don't take it personally. After what happened to you, you have every right to be cautious. Trust should be earned, not assumed." Her understanding and patience helped me heal. Now, if you're listening to this story, if you're an elderly person who needs help in your home, or if you're considering hiring a caregiver for yourself or a loved one, I need you to hear this. Never ignore the early warning signs of betrayal. If things start going missing, if your caregiver asks too many questions about your valuables, if they push for access to financial information or important documents, pay attention. Don't tell yourself you're being paranoid. Investigate. Trust is earned, not freely given. A good caregiver will understand that they need to prove themselves trustworthy over time. A bad caregiver will push for immediate, complete trust. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. Security cameras aren't signs of paranoia. They're smart precautions. Keeping valuables locked away isn't being suspicious, it's being wise. And if you discover you've been betrayed, report it immediately. Don't let shame or embarrassment prevent you from seeking justice. These predators count on elderly victims being too ashamed to report them. They count on people like me thinking, I should have known better, instead of, they shouldn't have stolen from me. I reported Linda. I testified against her. I pursued civil action against the agency that hired her. I spoke publicly about what happened to me. It was hard. It was embarrassing, but it was also necessary because Linda didn't just steal from me. She stole from multiple elderly people, and she would have continued if someone hadn't finally held her accountable. I held her accountable, and in doing so, I protected other potential victims. You can do the same if you find yourself in a similar situation. Don't suffer in silence. Don't let predators get away with exploitation because you're afraid of looking foolish. You're not foolish for trusting people. They're criminal for betraying that trust. The difference matters. I lost family heirlooms I can never replace. I lost my mother's pearl earrings and Thomas's watch and my grandmother's bracelet and so many other precious things. But I didn't lose my dignity. I didn't lose my voice. I didn't lose my determination to protect myself and others. I fought back. I exposed the truth. I made sure Linda Morrison could never hurt another elderly person again. And I rebuilt my life with better boundaries, smarter precautions, and the knowledge that protecting myself wasn't selfishness, it was wisdom. You can do the same. Be careful who you invite into your home. Screen caregivers thoroughly. Install security measures. Keep valuables secure. Monitor everything. And if you discover betrayal, act immediately. Report it. Prosecute it. Don't let predators exploit your vulnerability. Your safety, your home, and your personal dignity are worth protecting. Somewhere in Charleston, there's a 72-year-old widow who was robbed by a caregiver she trusted, who lost irreplaceable family heirlooms, who felt violated in her own home, who fought back, who exposed the predator, who made sure justice was served, who's still standing, still secure, still in control of her own life. You can be too. Stand strong, protect yourself, trust carefully. You've worked too hard and survived too much to let predators steal your peace, your possessions, or your dignity. Never again.